And you are tuned to the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen?
Greetings to you.
Wherever you are, for music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
the station for you is
OTR.
And we certainly hope the station for you is OTR. That's the Old Tube Radio Network. Coming up in our 34th year of hanging out on 27085. That's the old Channel 11, or maybe the new Channel 11, on Saturdays at 8 p.m. here in Central California, inviting all of those who have the vintage tube radios to jump into the Radio Shack for a moment or two and share them with us here. Get the collection on the air. Maybe you need a microphone check. Maybe you just have to drive it around the block. We are here to do that, and we enjoy doing that. The shortwave listeners hanging out with us as well, listening in for their favorite radios as they remember them. Maybe some new ones you've never heard before. We'll see what happens on the Old Tube Radio Network. Looking for radio number 1.
7:45.
All right, we've got 7. Step up into the air chair. Ed, 45. Jump into the green room. We'll be right with you, Paul. And who was, I think there was one more station over.
25.
And 25. Yeah, keep Paul company. Actually, I should have Paul keep you company, right? So you can have as many cookies as you want. Thanks, Jerry. You'll be Radio 3 tonight. Want to say hello to our viewers at Google, YouTube, and our listeners at oldtuberadio.net, and anybody tuning in the RF zone at 27085. Radio number 1. Let's find out what that is. Hello, Ed.
Hey, and this one brings the Tram TR27 Echo with electro voice microphone.
Sounding good, nice audio. Actually, we're featuring that very radio earlier on the stream here tonight, or when we were testing, so let's see how it works. I've got a new device that will grab our picture for the video side. We'll see if it's working as you give us a transmission on the Tram.
There we go. That is a picture of this very radio speaking to you now. And, it looks pretty much exactly the same way, although I did get the little mark above the little red switch there in the middle, pretty much gone and cleaned off.
Oh, yeah, it looks like a pin or something. I wonder if that was drawn on, so if they made the hole, they knew where the hole was. I mean, it's only an on-off switch, so you would know that it goes up to do whatever function it should do. Sounds good. The Tram TR27E, that was one of their, I guess, maybe the final model in the TR27 series from 1963. Doing a good job. Give us another transmission.
Yes, this was the final in the series of the TR27s. Full 23-channel transmit and receive with all the crystals in there. In fact, the other ones were built just like this. On the top portion, there's a little panel with 2 screws you can take off, and it's right there with the crystals, so you can add and subtract and move around whatever you want. So you'd have all 23 or someplace else.
Wasn't uncommon for the early radios to have crystal control transmit, of course, as designated by the FCC. Get a lot of crystals in there, all 23 of them, and to keep the cost down, put in a variable VFO, and you're able to get all 23 channels with on the receive side without having to buy the companion receive crystal. Let's see. I'm going to flop over to our S-meter cam so we can give you a signal report. Ed does a real good job here in the net control, and give us another transmission before you go.
I'll copy that. Yeah, this one's been amped up just a little bit. It's been peaked and tweaked, I'll say that. It does a little bit more than the 4 watts it's supposed to, but with that, we'll let you get to another old tube radio.
All right, thanks. Looking good on the S meter with 20 dB of signal with a little bit of forward movement on the bar there for the Tram TR27E to get us started off, and I'll mark that one in at 8:40 p.m. Heading over to radio number 2 on the hit parade here tonight, SWL 45. Hello, Paul, if you can hear me.
Hearing you just fine, Dennis. I want to check in my General Radio Telephone Super MC12.
Wow, all right. Well, I was guessing earlier when I heard you on the roll call that it might have been a buddy, but you usually run the buddies on the mild side for audio, but the General Radio telephones, I know you like to show off with those. That one's screaming without being obnoxious and having fuzzy audio and flat topping and all the things that might happen if the radio wasn't glowing in the dark. We'll find a shot of the General Radio telephone MC12. I hope we have one here while we go back to you for a transmission.
Okay, I'll be watching for it. I hope you do too. Anyway, this is the last General Radio telephone that was manufactured. Yeah, that's the picture. That's the one. That's not the one I'm talking on. That used to belong to Jim, SWL number 1. And it kind of transformer blew up on the thing, so not been able to find a transformer for it. I was lucky enough to find this radio by Bob Millam, had it down there in his collection. He's passed away, and his wife had it, and I was able to get it from her. Very great radio. Bob Millam was a great friend, and he furnished a lot of parts to me. All these originals, he had a lot of them. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Yeah, that was been his collection, or his collections were really great, and a lot of them have been redistributed now and on the air, and we're glad that I think you have some of them, like you said, and parts, and hopefully they are in good hands and get used occasionally on whatever night that you can check in. The General Radio Telephone Super MC12, a lot like the MC11A, which we will probably hear tonight later. I bet there will be at least one 11A checking in. General Radio Telephone was sold to Skyhawk Antenna Company in 1972, just before the big boom, just as it was happening, 72, 73. I don't think we had Convoy or Smoking the Bandit just yet, so maybe if they could have hung on. But things were going in the solid state direction, that's for sure. They upgraded the MC12 with a much larger and powerful final audio tube, but it wasn't able to get a type acceptance by the FCC, so that probably made things a little bit rough for continuing trying to make a profit if you can't get a type acceptance on your radio. Radio number 2 sounding good. Give us another transmission, Paul, and I'll pop the S meter up here, so if you're watching the video back, you can get a report as well. Sounding good.
Okay, I'm using the General Radio Telephone CM-3 microphone on it, and it came with the radio. And this thing has got a real interesting thing. It's got what they call a super squelch. I'll kind of read it and read it a little bit to you here. The squelch is in the RF section using one half of the RF tube. It gave you squelch and RF gain in the squelch control. And I'll tell you what, that worked neat. It really did. If you ever offer anything like that, it's fun. Too bad they didn't make it. I thought the FCC should have done. All right, that's about it. Thanks for checking it in.
And I'll say thanks for bringing it by. That's why we have been on the air for 34 years here at the Old Tube Radio Network. Our gracious tube radio operators who take time out from their Saturday evening activities and jump into the Radio Shack, the radio room, wherever the radios might be, and share them with us here at 27085, the Old Tube Radio Network. Heading on to Radio 3, Jerry, up there in Madera Heights, beaconing down into Midtown Fresno with something in his radio table tonight. Hello, SWL 25.
Well, I tell you what, Dennis, that's a hard act to follow. Paul, if you're listening, that's a loud radio, but it sounds fantastic. So, but anyway, that's a hard act to follow. Anyway, SWL 25 checking in on the Holocrafters CB3A little phone. The only reason I am is because this happened to be the radio that was in line from last week. So, it's not that I'm being lazy, but anyway, talking on a non-powered D104, and let's see, what do we got? 8-channel crystal controlled with a VFO, and it does have the external VFO, not VFO, but S-meter on the right-hand side, and it's bouncing all over the place, and it has a little orange light on the lower left-hand side on the air light. That's about it, Dennis. Oh, by the way, this radio takes the two-pin connection, just like the old Brownings two-pin, like my Mark III takes. So it's kind of cool. So anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Back to me in the studio. The CB3A is sounding great. Got a good picture of the radio. Has the options on either side of the channel selector and the rectangular boxes to put an S-meter, which is that bright thing that you're seeing on the video, and a variable receive VFO. And you'd knock out the tab there or unscrew the tab and a wire in the item of interest. And I agree with you, Paul. That's definitely a hard act to follow on a Super MC12. It's sort of like the high school days when you're having to do a debate or something, and you have to follow the school valedictorian debater, and all you have is your little 3x5 cards with scratching on them. But you are in the mix, and your debate is working quite nicely here. Hallicrafters, of course, a company that made way more than CB radios. It's sort of an aside from them, as they made their name early on with shortwave receivers and televisions and things of that nature. And sort of they finished off their illustrious career in the mid to late 60s and the 70s with a few amateur radio things and lots and lots of CB radios, and this is one of them. Let's go back to you for another transmission. I always ask everyone, we were showing A in the box for the channel, but I wonder what channel or what letter channel 11 is in. Over.
Okay. Yeah, channel C is 27.085, and quite frankly, there's other crystals in there. I really haven't messed with it because this particular frequently is the only one I care about. So that should be kudos to you, Dennis, and thank you for your 38 plus years of service of promoting these old tube radios. Without you, man, these things would be boat anchors. Anyway, thanks, Dennis, and back to you.
Looking good. S8 on the meter. Occasional audio put it to about an 8.5. And speaking of audio, doing a nice job with the supplied microphonium on the Hallicrafters CB3A little phone, radio number 3 at 852. The Jingle Singers are, I'm peeking through the rack here, the Jingle Singers are ready to give us yet another tune to let us all know what it is that we've happened to stumble onto here on a Saturday night.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, your favorite spot on the dial by far is known to you as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
And we're looking for radio number 4. And I'll put up the S meter again. Of course, you can't see when I'm talking, but when I stop transmitting, you'll notice it's hanging at around 6 to 7 S units. And the reason it does that, my noise level is probably a little bit less than that, but what I do is I roll my RF gain control, find out where the noise is, maybe it's S5, S6, and I roll my RF gain control right at about that level, instead of using a receive preamp or no receive preamp, and I do it with the RF gain. The one reason to do that is to minimize the resting static. For those of you listening, keep it down to a dull roar, but it doesn't, without trying to affect the incoming station. So it's a little bit easier on the ears that way, OTR listening.
Number 7.
And Ed is back with Radio 4 at 8:57, so no doubt your selection there will take us into the next hour, and I'm curious to know what you are talking on. Over.
The E.F. Johnson Messenger 223.
From Edgar F., not as SWL2, he tricked me. He told me it was Elmer Fudd, and for the longest time I thought it was EF was Elmer Fudd, but it's Edgar F. I'm not sure about the F, but I am sure about the Edgar. Let's grab a shot of the radio on which Ed is talking. We'll go back to you for transmission.
There you go. Yes, this is the one with the modulation light. And very simple radio, 3 knobs, place to plug in your microphone, speaker, S meter, and channel selector, and there you are.
Wherever you key up, there you are. Always good audio with that radio. I've never had one on the desk here, but from what the operators tell me, it's also got a great receive and pretty indestructible. So as we've mentioned before, if you're looking for a starter radio, something to start your collection, they sold a lot of those from 69 to 1972. The prices are still fairly reasonable. Typically you can find them with the desk mic, sometimes not. But that would be a good choice if you're looking to start a collection. Back to you.
Well, this one only cost me $35, so I cannot complain. Had to add my own microphone to it, but there you go. Nice, simple, easy radio.
The way we like it, keep it simple. Plus, you get all 23 channels on an S meter, so it's basically a deluxe version, and everything else is icing on the cake, right? If you want RF gain controls and mic gain controls and things like that. We'll go ahead and pop over to the S meter side so you can get an idea of the signal on that one if you're going to do comparative. I think you were 20 over on the tram. I'm not sure, but anyway, back to you, and we'll pop up the S meter here.
Okay, this one's not going to quite do as much, so being as close as we are, though, it may show up to be pretty close to the same. Anyway, with that, we'll let you get to another radio.
Yeah, it modulates up to 20 over, at a 15 dB over S9, but it has the good forward modulation, and the audio sounds good, as we all can hear. Thanks for bringing that one by on the old Tube Radio Network. Let's see if I can find my other page here. I wanted to update and see if we had any comments that we needed to address here. On the Tram TR27. I think you mentioned that. This is back a few radios ago, but someone asked what the function of the crystal socket on the front of the TR27 was, and I believe you answered that question.
No, but that is for an external receive.
Does it have a switch? I don't have the picture up, but do you have a front panel switch or something that would engage that?
That is correct. There is a switch on the bottom next to the channel selector there that has an M and an X. The M is in the manual position, but the X is for the external crystal.
All right, makes sense. And if you've never, for those of you who are used to a click-stop radio, click, 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 get your channels in that way, or maybe a digital control where you can punch the numbers in on the newer stuff. If you had a VFO and you're on channel 23 where you're going to be tuning through back down to 19, 17, 15 and try and find, if you want to go down to channel 1 or channel 2. Let's say you're in the day your home channel is channel 2, but you like to go up and talk to the group on channel 22. Having that crystal where you could click into channel 2 without having to turn dials would be a plus. And more than one radio had situations like that, especially when you had the tunable VFO, so you could kind of flip the switch and get into right on frequency and not have to rotate dials around. It's kind of a cool function. The Old Tube Radio Network. My name is Dennis. We are here in Central California, over the air at 27085. Everywhere else at oldtuberadio.net. Hello to you, those of you listening there, and on the Google YouTube live feed, which may or may not be live when you're watching it a year from now, but also hello to you, and we are looking for radio number 5.
And don't forget, you need to be 21 over to have that VO.
25.
Right, but a VFO, I think you probably could have any age. 25, I hear you loud and clear at 903, over.
Well, I don't know, Chris, you want to check in that radio?
You go ahead. You said a number before I did. I just put the comment in it, but I was going to take a break, but you're first. You got it, sir.
All righty, buddy. Anyway, I'll make it short. Sonar Model G, 8-channel transmit crystal controlled with a VFO, and I just kind of played around on channel 15 on the spot button, and it actually works. It helps dial in the S meter. Anyway, on the stalk, wide, big old sonar microphone talking straight across it. And boy, there's not much else to talk about. It's pretty simple radio. I think there were some options on this radio. I think it was designed as a mobile. And you could either have it with an internal speaker or not, because a lot of times if you're going to use it as a mobile, you'd probably want to get an external speaker, and so you didn't have to get an internal speaker if you're going to use an external, vice versa. So anyway, there you go. The Sonar Model G. As Scotty used to check this radio in, he called it the double conversion. Anyway, back to you, Dennis.
Double conversion, because I do believe the receiver is one of the dual conversions that were popular in the mid-1960s when that came out. Boy, audio is loud. It is rivaling. You were talking about having to follow Paul on the general radio telephone. Make a note that if you want to, what do they say? Be a player. Check in with the sonar after he checks in with the general radio telephone. Right up there in the audio department. Really, really loud. We got a really great picture here showing the Model G front panel. I'll grab another one, I think, on your next transmission. We'll also get the S meter in there as well, but really loud audio. Nice audio from that radio. You have nothing to be ashamed of, over.
All righty. Well, boy, the meter's banging, doing its job, and it's just there's a bunch of tubes, I guess, that are aligned and doing their thing, man. That's what's great about these old tube radios, so especially when they work. Anyway, thanks for checking it in, Dennis, and back to you.
All right, now, before you go, I wanted to get a shot of this radio showing the microphone, the very large microphone that is helping with that audio. And who was it? Was it Crazy Bob, I think, introduced me to the actual nickname of that microphone, which I think is the piece of toast or something, over.
Oh, yeah. it's a handful. Of course, I have big hands, so, but it's, I don't think I've ever held a microphone that's in my hands that's any bigger than this one. So, and again, I'm just talking across the face. I'm not talking into it. So, Speedy A-Ball told me about that. He goes, yeah, don't talk into that thing, just talk across it, and so you don't get the extra, well, anyway, spit noises and stuff. So, anyway, that's probably pretty graphic. But anyway, back to you, Dennis. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks for bringing it by. That is why we are here every Saturday, to create a forum for the tube radio operators and the tube radios, like driving your classic car around the block to the hamburger stand once a week to get it out of the garage and basically show off. We're showing off here. I'll say that. We're showing off the radios tonight. That's a good thing. They should be out there, and people should be reminded or remember, or those who weren't around can see why there was at some point the excitement. The 4 million people on CB radio was because of these radios and things like that got people excited about getting on the air. You are listening to the Old Tube Radio Network, and I do believe we probably have Radio 6 standing by. Over.
Well, yeah, but I'm sitting.
We have Radio 6 sitting by, hopefully in a comfortable chair next to the radio desk.
Well, yeah, just kind of a padded chair with padded arms on it. You know, it rocks even. You know, one of those office type chairs you buy at what are they called over here at those computer places. Anyways, this in here, I don't know if it's as loud as Jerry is over there. You know, a loudmouth over there, him banging my meters, but this old General here, it has a thing or two about getting out once in a while, so I'll check in the General radio telephone, the Super MC11A, 24-channel version of this here. We're running this here with a stock handheld microphone.
It is very loud. Another stock microphone on a tube radio doing its thing, and if you heard our radio number 2, that was Paul, and he was on the General Radio Telephone Super MC12, the radio that came after that, with even more modifications to make it louder, which I didn't think was possible, but seems to be doing good. It's always sounds good, holds up well, takes a licking, and keeps on ticking. Over.
Oh, yeah, well, you know, Jerry, he was back there saying something about Wild Thing or something. I said, yeah, Wild Thing, you make those tubes sing, you know, all that kind of stuff, you know.
Trying to think when that song came out. Probably before this radio made it to the scene in the early 1970s. I think that was a 60s tune. I'm going to try something here. It may not work out. No, we'll go to the S meter. So give us a transmission. We'll pop the S meter up here.
Okay, well, mine slamming to the other side almost. Let's see, what's the hit me meter? I mean, the wiggle meter up here. Well, yeah, it's showing I'm doing about 5. Well, wait, 4. Swinging up to about 5 or 6.
Yeah, showing an S9 and 5 dB over, or perhaps even 10 dB over, depending on how the audio shows up and where things go. So I was going to try and there it is. I know that doesn't work out too well, but there's the giant. For those watching the video, I just wanted to give you a comparison on how large the radio is compared to me. So that way you know why it sounds the way it does. It's just a big radio. Over.
Well, you know, it's not really all that big. It's longer than what it is tall or wide, and it's heavier than all of them.
I'm going to say it probably weighs in 15 pounds, 17 pounds. That was a typical weight for those radios with tubes. Although that one's got the rack handles and looks like you could drop it off the back of the truck and it would still be okay.
Yeah, probably would. Not much telling, you know.
At least it don't weigh as much as my Kenwood, though.
No, the Kenwood's got a big honking power supply in it, so it'll run 100 watts of audio, and so it needs a little bit more of a power supply, I think. I think those were done before the days of switching power supplies to keep the radios light and happy. Radio number 6 is a General Radio Telephone Super MC11A. It's sounding good as it always does. Thank you, Chris, for bringing it by.
All right, Dennis. Well, I want to get out here for right now. I got to go jump in the rain locker, and if I get back in time, I can try to check in another.
All right, we'll hopefully be here, and we'll be glad to take your check-in on the Old Tube Radio Network. And Stan reiterating, crystal socket on the front of the TR-27E was for one channel on the receive. You move the slide switch below it to move it from VFO to crystal. Kind of a handy thing. I wonder if you could... What we used to do in our Hallicrafters walkie-talkie, you had a receive channel, a receive crystal, and a transmit crystal, and I think the receive crystal was 455 kilocycles off below, and we used to swap them, so we'd be transmitting on 26 something and receiving on 26. It was weird. It actually worked. We would flop the crystals around, and we'd have a nice quiet frequency for receive. So maybe you could do something like that, although you'd still have to get your transmitter down there as well. The Old Tube Radio Network, we are looking for Radio 7.
7.
All right, we have 2. First up will be, and step up into the air chair, Mr. Ed with Radio 7. And then Radio 8 will be Paul up there in North Fork. So we'll be right with you, Paul. But first, let's see what Mr. Ed has. We got the 7-7 here. Go ahead.
There we go. With the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB with Golden Eagle microphone. D104, that is.
Golden Eagle D104. Let me see if I can find the proper component shot for that has both the radio and the microphone, and that's what we will insert into the video here as you take a transmission over.
There you go. Big 2-piece radio. This thing definitely takes up the entire radio table. That and the microphone was a garage sale find for $5, so I cannot complain.
Oh, man, I guess not. I think we all have, those of us who've been into the, I better not call it a hobby, the FCC will call, but been into the radios for quite some time, pre-eBay days. Remember going out garage sailing and finding those garage sale prices. That they may still exist. Don't rule out garage sales not having radios, or, as Chris knows, thrift stores. eBay's a great way to get diversity and finding the obscure things that you might want. But the thrift stores and garage sales are always good at getting the bargains. And the bonus, with finding something for $20 to $30 or $5 is that it might actually work when you take it home. At least you know it's not going to be damaged in shipping over.
There you go. And, it was in the box. Never had a plug put on it, so it had not been used. Pristine condition.
Looking good. Give me another transmission. Looks like we're at least 20 over on that one, on the resting carrier, but I'll compare it. You've been pretty much 20 over on all the radios tonight.
Yeah, this one goes up to, about 11, 12 watts when it hits the peaks. But, it's pretty comparable to the others. The tram has just a wee bit more, and that'll be it for the night, I'm afraid.
All right, yeah, it's comparable to the E.F. Johnson. It keys up just a little under 20, but I think it has a little bit more audio drive when you actually get into the microphone. Radio 7, the classic 1972 to 1976 radio put out by the Browning Laboratories. often known as the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB. There was an AM version of that with the AM transmitter, which I believe was half that size. It didn't need the sideband adapter in it. That's a little bit rarer to find. Even though these radios were in the $700 range, in that 6 years they sold a lot of them. There were a lot of people. A lot of people were eating macaroni and cheese back in the day to buy those radios, I would think, at that price. Sounding good, and thanks for checking it in.
And thank you.
And that'll take us up to Jingle Singers. Now, hang on, guys. Jingle Singers want to start right now, but first I want to get Radio 8 checked in, and that's coming from Paul, SWL 45. Hello, radio.
Hey, Dennis. I'm going to carry on with the generals. Checked in my 12, and Chris checked in his 11A, so I want to check in my MC11.
Oh, okay. That's rare. We don't hear many of the 11s, and I don't have a production schedule for General Ready Telephone to find out how long they worked on the 11 before they did an 11A to know which might be the rarer radio. So as we go back to you, we'll find a shot of the MC11, and boy, this one is very loud as well. Over.
Great. I'm using a Cerner 350C microphone on the thing. I'd like to put in the General Radio Telephone microphone later on if I could and see how it sounds with the one that actually comes with the General. But as far as just a standard microphone out of the box. Anyway, I was lucky enough to get this 11A, or not 11. They had an oscillator problem with the General, so they recalled them all. And you can tell when you get one, it has the logo right on the top left up there by the meter. And the ones that haven't been altered or changed or repaired don't have that logo up there. Interesting. I kind of like the logo on there. It's neat. But anyway, it's got 9 tubes in it. And of course, it's got the great ECL 800 cubic thing, just like the 11A does. And can you tell if it, I think we've been through this before. I think the oscillation problem is not that great. Can you tell it?
No, but I think that microphone might be overdriving it a little bit. Your audio has sort of a background noise to it. So if you can, it would be great if we can do the microphone when it's convenient for you to do the microphone swap to the General Radio Telephone microphone. We heard how good Chris sounds on his MC11A, and I think that 350 is actually overdriving it a bit, and if it was getting oscillation, that's probably why. So you have it adjusted so the oscillation isn't there, but I bet even less audio or the standard microphone would clean it up just a bit. Over.
You wouldn't believe it. I can't get the microphone off the 11. It's sticking on here. One time you work on one of these old things, you always have to do something. I don't care.
No, I know about the old radios. It's you go to take the microphone off, and then the jacket from the plug comes off instead of the microphonium. So yeah, do whatever works to not break anything. We get the idea. My guess is that the 350 is probably a little bit more microphone than it needs. Over.
I'm back again. Well, yeah, the pause, I think, when the mic finally come out of the socket, I finally got it pulled out by shaking it around a little bit. It needs to be a little clean, I think. But I didn't get any of that already. Anyway, this thing has all the rest of the stuff, all the torque and all that, and the single VFO for the single channels. And by the way, you're taking up so much room on that thing when I adjust it. It's amazing what you're taking up, more than any of the rest of them, just about. You got a good radio, Dennis. Real good radio. Anyway, that's about it, man. I hope this microphone sounds better than the other one.
Well, that sounds good. Now, is that a different microphone? Did you swap microphones?
Yeah,
Yeah, this is a general radio telephone, regular mic, got a back on CM3 general radio telephone. This came with my 12, so they were about the same mic on 11A, and it's a general radio telephone. And I don't know what they've done to the inside of the thing, but they've done something to them. They do sound better, I believe. Back to you.
Wow, okay. It has a little bit more low frequencies, but it's still very loud. It almost... I'm trying to think how to describe it. It almost sounds like you could be running mobile, where you have that wind noise behind you, and just it doesn't sound like a quiet room, and I can really hear a lot of the breath noises and things. So very sensitive microphone, of course, and I'm thinking that the audio gain adjustment is probably really peaked for maybe a more quiet microphone, but it's nice and loud, and you will hear, as you will hear if you listen to the archives, which I will mention we do have. You can find them by going to the archive button at oldtuberadio.net, bringing down the OTR magnetophone and looking for the date, and whether it's an SWL check-in or a tube radio check-in, if you'd like to hear an MP3 of your audio. And we have them, gosh, for the last 6 or 7 years, I think, so it goes back quite a while. And then we do keep the video up for a little bit as well. Thank you, Paul. The jingle singers now stepping up to the ribbon microphone, and if I find the right control to open that ribbon microphone, we will hear them tell us about the friendly place on Saturday evenings.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, the friendliest station for you by far is known to all and
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
The Old Tube Radio Network. And I agree, Stan. I think the radio is on the general radio telephone, Super MC11, is set for either too high or where there was another microphone that didn't have that much gain. But there's a mic gain pot in the inside of the radio, as you probably well know, Paul, that may need to be cranked down a bit, because even the standard non-amplified microphone made you sound like you're running mobile. 26,640. Stan, 26,640 sounds about right. It was 26,6 something. I don't have the walkie-talkies here, but I'm sure it wasn't quite enough out of band to make them work. And then we mentioned earlier the Wild thing. Originally by the Wild Ones. I was thinking it was by the Trogs, but that's the original one. Came out in 1965. So it was more of a Sonar Model G anthem than a general radio telephone. The Trogs recorded in 1966. That was the the first Browning Golden Eagles in 66, I think, when those came out. So maybe you can judge your favorite radio by what was playing on the tube radio in the Ford Fairlane back in 1966. We are looking for Radio 9. Oh, that's not a very good picture. I'm trying to find a shot. Stan mentioned that Stan has a collection, or is a collector of another device that uses a lot of tubes, and that is the classic jukeboxes. And he mentions that in honor of our tube radios and maybe the tune Wild Thing, he's got the Seeburg AY100 jukebox fired up. I was trying to find a good shot of one to let people know what it is that we're talking about here. Here's another one. Let me try that one. The AY100. This might be a little bit better. That fits into the format. And a good old 45. I have some 45s around here, but they are definitely not be able to play them in the style that Stan does. All right, here we go. That's a little bit better. So rock on 71.
All right, I'm pulling the old radio down from the top shelf.
All right, be careful that it makes it down in one piece. Over.
Well, let's see. Yeah, the mice have not chewed the cords just yet.
That's a good thing. You're listening to the Old Tube Radio Network.
You're listening in the latest style at
27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio.
In wonderful
Fresno, California.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
It is working. Over.
Okay. Let's see here. Hello. A little bit too much modulation there. Okay. This is SWL 40 checking in an Old Tube radio.
Well, we'd like to check it in, and it will be radio number 9. Over.
All right. Radio here is a drum roll, please. Jimtronics GTX 5000 40 channel CB radio. Wow. And trying to get some, here, let me adjust my tone a little bit. That might, yeah, that helped a little bit. So anyways, yes, this is the Gemtronics. Yes, there it is. Right there on my old tube radio screen.
You might be able to hear it in stereo. The Gemtronics GTX 5000, our first 40-channel radio of the evening, using the infamous Panasonic chassis that was used in the Robin T240D and the T-Berry T, Shakespeare Colt, and some others. Always had good audio. If you're looking for a 40-channel tube radio, you can't go wrong with any of those, because they're going to sound pretty much like the radio we're listening to now, sans whatever microphonium you're putting on there, which it had a little bit of crackle and crunch, but it is back now. So I think you said the mice were behaving, over.
Yes, they are behaving fairly well. They behave when I feed them well. Only problem is that they multiply. So, but they behave well. And let's see, what else did I get? Oh yes, the microphone is the Turner Expander 500 by Turner Corporation, and I'm sure somewhere there's a picture of that microphone on the internet.
Getting some interesting microphones in tonight. The 350 and the 500, the Expander 500. Do you know when that microphone came out, when it was popular?
No, but I'm going to guess it was probably the 70s.
Did, as seen on Smokey and the Bandit?
I'm not familiar with Smokey, but I have ran into the Bandit. As a matter of fact, I saw him driving up D Street the other night, doing about 110 miles an hour.
Wow. All right. Well, there is a very expanded view of what is supposed to be a Turner Expander 500 microphone. Maybe as we're looking at it, it's got, I think it's got more controls than the radio does, over.
Yes. Yeah, that's well, that's a very crummy picture, but yes, that is it. And I'm actively searching for a better picture than that one.
What are all the controls doing? You've got 1, 2 slide controls. Look at it. Looks like it has some type of modulation meter. Is that intra microphone that has nothing to do with connecting into the radio?
Right. This is the there's a battery. The meter on the mic inside the microphone indicates the let's see, the decibels, and then there's a battery test as well, and then we have the first slider on the left is the volume, and then the other slider is the tone. Oh, and the button, the upper right button is the battery test button.
Which type of battery does it take?
It takes a standard 9-volt square battery.
Looks like it has a big push-to-talk bar. Is the head rotatable or adjustable? It looks like it's kind of pointing down in this picture. I see a what looks appear to be a screw on the side. Is that something you can move around, or do you have to set it and forget it?
Yeah, it moves up and down, but there is no rotation. It's fixed.
Okay, well, it looks kind of nice. Trying to do some audio things back in the early days, sort of like we're doing here with the rack gear. My guess is that probably was a little bit more expensive than your standard microphonium, but it seems to be working well with that radio, the Gemtronics GTX 5000, which is our Radio 9 tonight.
Oh, I just came across a website here, and the Turner Expander 500 says version 2, which looks a lot like mine, was produced in 1978.
1978, all right, so sort of it was begat by all the things we were talking about earlier that made the CB craze. So figure, yeah, we can make that and we can sell it and people will buy it, and the people did.
Yes. However, the push-to-talk bar is no longer available on this microphone, as I had to remove it because it was malfunctioning.
There you go. And some of the comments, and I could see why, saying that a lot of people didn't like the 500s when they first came out. And some say it didn't sound as good as the Plus 3, so maybe they tried to put the wrong items in there, or the items they put in weren't compatible or suitable to a lot of radios. And that's something that we found here in the old Tube Radio Network, especially using a tube radio with the tube audio circuits and the AM mode, because you've got the wider 6 kilohertz fidelity, that finding a microphone to fit your voice, to fit your radio, is actually a critical to make to how the radio is going to sound. And we have a lot of people that use very unconventional, typically unconventional CB style microphones with their radios, and sound quite well. Maybe, and a lot of the manufacturers, the supplied microphones, as we've seen tonight with Sonar and General Radio Telephone, if you don't go in and mess with the radio audio controls, output controls, they came from the factory to sound pretty doggone good with the supplied microphone, the way things were adjusted. So you just never know. Thanks for bringing by Radio 9.
Roger that. And there's a great picture on cbmuseum.nl.
All right, I'll check that out. I actually had a semi-decent shot that fit in my aspect ratio format. I want to acknowledge a breaking station that I believe sounded like 110 over.
Yeah, Dennis, first over 110. I'm just starting to lose you up here, a lot of static. I just wanted to jump in there and say howdy, 5150.
All right, 5150, sounding good. Actually, you're actually sounding a little bit better, I think, than you did on the SWL check-in. So maybe we've got the one-way conditions going on. Over.
Well, I'm running a 4-watt Johnson Viking Messenger, and right about now I get so much static up here in the hill, I start to lose you. So I feel like give you a shot before I stay for an hour and a half waiting.
Hey, not a problem. Your Johnson Whiteface sounding pretty good. Sometimes the receive on those left a little bit to be desired if you were in crowded band conditions, but we kind of have the band to ourselves here tonight, I think.
Yeah, you're coming in real good. It's just it's kind of getting static here. I keep moving my beam around. I finally got the tower back hooked up, and I was wondering how does it sound on this 4-watt?
4 watts, doing good. Not sure how much, what beam you have and the type of amplification that might be happening, so that the 4 watts coming out of the antenna or coming out of the radio might be a little bit more than the 4 watts ERP. It's doing a good job. So hopefully, if you can hear me, what you're doing right now will be a work in future episodes of the Old Tube Radio Network. I hear you quite well, over.
Yeah, Dennis, I'm running a Lightning 6 signal engineering out of Santa Clara, California antenna. And it's up good, almost 100 feet right now, so almost all the way up. I just got tired.
Hey, not a problem. You have got over the height above average terrain issue to get from where you are, which is just at the bottom of the foothills and kind of down in a hole where he's at, as to where I'm at, maybe 15 or 20 miles or so. So we're looking at lots of things in the way. So altitude and the beam working quite well. 5150, you are sounding good, and we've added your radio, the Johnson Viking Messenger, as our radio 10 tonight.
I appreciate it, Dennis. Thanks for letting me jump in there. Well, you have a good evening, and 5150 north of Lake, I'll be out.
And it's good to hear you back on the air. It's been a while, and so hopefully the beam will work out, and we'll be able to hear more from you and the radios at that station. Thanks for checking in.
Thanks, Dennis.
Are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic
Old Tube Radio.
for you.
Looking for Radio 11. I think it was the magic eye monster devouring me there.
Where's your green screen? Put up your green screen.
and not a speck of skip today, at least on 10 and 11 meters. Didn't hear anything. 20 was open. Well, barely for me. Now, if I was like Ed and had a decent delta loop, and I think he said he made a couple of decent contacts, which is when the band is not doing too well, that's kind of what you need is a decent antenna. Helps things out. It helps to hear and it helps to transmit. So 20 was open, and who knows what else. We'll see what we can do here in the last 10 minutes at the Old Tube Radio Network.
Yeah, that was a little over 70 feet for a 20-meter loop antenna.
I'm thinking it's like 17, a quarter wave is 17, so that's 40 and 28 and 68 plus 17 and something, so. It's amazing what you can do with a little bit of wire.
40-meter loops, 140 feet.
I keep thinking I have room here to do what's a double extended ZEP, which is, I don't know if I'd have room for an 80-meter double extended ZEP. I might have room for 40-meter. That's basically just an extended dipole. I can't remember. I think those may have to be. Are those fed with coax or a tuner? But I think I'm gonna have to move some power lines to do it.
Yeah, I cannot fit the 80 meter on here. Just 40.
40 is a good band during the day, and if you have a good antenna that's got some altitude, it's actually, I liked it at night as well, except it's a little noisy. You got to battle. Although they changed it, I don't think there's shortwave stations below 7,200 now. But below, you were fighting with Voice of America and just about every shortwave station that would come on there in the 41 meter band, I guess they call it. But that's where I caught a lot of people just out there calling CQ and doing a lot of antenna testing and things like that. So it sounds like you've got the proper antenna to do that. Got to turn on the props here. Hey, and there's someone listening in Minkler. I'm surprised I'm actually making it into Minkler. It's sort of Centerville and Minkler are to the east. And they're actually, I think you guys are down in a hole a little bit. So my hat is off to you for having a great receiver. Hello, Eric and neighbor. And there's actually not a club. There's no secret handshakes. There's no dues. There's really no joining. The fact that you've actually made a comment and made your presence known is good enough for some acknowledgement. I'm wondering, you're listening on channel 11. I wonder if you have a transmitter. If it's a mobile, I might not hear you, but what I'll do is I'll be listening here, and I will be extremely surprised if I could hear a base station with a decent antenna from the Minkler area, but I will give it a listen. Anyway, hello, Eric, and friend SWLing from Minkler. I'm going to say you might be our first Minkler station ever, and that's saying a lot for 34 years.
Don't forget to check out the microphones.
Well, that's a museum. I thought it was the Turner website, but they've got everything there.
Yeah, if you scroll down, it kind of gets interesting. Something I haven't seen before.
And Larry has provided a link at oldtuberadio.net to microphones for some classic microphoniums, if you'd like to check it out. I like the Ham Master 4000. Looks sort of like the one you have, but a different configuration.
Yeah, when I was searching, some of them have a red button, and the others have I think the red button one is probably the newer version. Step away from the radio for a little bit.
Okay, here we got about 6 minutes left doing some counting and amounting. Things have slowed down. I didn't check to see if there was a Fresno State game tonight. Thanks, JT, SWL 83. Hope all goes well. Like you say, the hurricane goes away. Do you have something you chant like, rain, rain, go away? Come again another day? Is there another little rhyme for hurricanes? Counting and amounting soon, looking for Radio 11 and the jingle singers pointing to the microphonium saying, it is time once again. So here we go.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
Break OTR.
Hello, radio. The break OTR. Go ahead.
ANS 70, checking in, please.
7-0 on the hit and run. Hello, Mark. Hope all is well. And if I can find the right device that I need to put on my hand, I'll get you checked in here.
Thank you for allowing my drive-by check-in.
Yeah, we should do that. Maybe I need a drive-through window for those quick check-ins, QRP, exact change, whatever. Sounding good. Maybe the coupon discount. The Sheriff of Nottingham has arrived. Good morning, Big Ben. Last call for SWL and radio check-ins here on the old Tube Radio Network.
OTR. Channel 11.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us
Old Tube Radio.
and be modern.
And as Red Skelton used to say, if I doed it, that was the mean little kid, right? If I doed it, I get a weapon. Well, I'm gonna do it. We will sign off here pretty much on time tonight. I think we didn't have to go into extra innings on this one. The Old Tube Radio Network, thanks to all those who stopped by and waved a hand, whether it was at 27085 on the RF side, or whether we caught you at oldtuberadio.net, whether it be from somewhere in Nottingham Forest, or Sherwood Forest, sorry, somewhere in Sherwood Forest, or Minkler, Centerville, parts beyond the Old Tube Radio Network. We enjoy your Tube Radios and hanging out with us here on Saturday night. Let's go to the SWL side. and get a total. How quickly can I add 10, 16, and 12 and 16? I believe that is 54 total SWLs checking in tonight with 10 on page 1, 16 on page 2, 12 on page 3, and 16 on page 4 for a total of 54. Radios, we did make double digits right at 10 thanks to the E.F. Johnson there at the end. Most heard radio manufacturer. Who do you think it might have been? Indeed, it was the General Radio Telephones. Very loud tonight. The late model ECL L800s really rocking the house here tonight. Started off with a Tram I can say that. A Tram TR27E. I'd like to buy a vowel, please. The Tram TR27E. Mr. Ed starting us off with that. The General Radio Telephone Super MC12. Their final in the Super MC line, some say. There was a prototype that we have checked in before, but this one actually made it to market, even though it didn't get FCC type accepted. Radio, thanks, Paul, for that. Radio 3, Jerry on the Helicopters CB3A Little Phone. That was followed by the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223 from Mr. Ed for Radio 4. Radio 5 was the very loud Sonar Model G from Mr. Sidekick, SWL25. Radio 6 was Chris on the General Radio Telephone Super MC11A, always loud. Mr. Ed on his Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB for Radio 7. Radio 8, Paul on the General Radio Telephone Super MC11. Which was very loud. Maybe too loud. Maybe that does need a little internal peak and tweak to bring the resting audio level down. And we might be able to throw a few more different microphoniums on there. The CB Kid, the Gemtronics GTX 5000, still working with the Turner microphonium, and then Radio 10 from 5150. Beaconing from the Millerton Lake, thanks to the Lightning 6 antenna and his Johnson Viking Messenger. Are there any questions that we need to answer? I will refresh that. Looks like we're doing okay on the video. I think it's the middle of the month. They're coming up the middle of the month here, and everybody is ready. Everybody is ready for a little something, maybe some ice cream. And then a big nap. I don't know. I'm going to do a couple of things here when I get out of the radio room. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks to SearchLawrence.com and Frodix for keeping the Nixie tubes running. And thanks to all of you for keeping us running here at the Old Tube Radio Network. 73, we'll look for you next Saturday. It's one of those things where I may or may not be in the air chair. We'll have to see. If I take that fast train from Clarksville, I might just make it. We'll let you know. Stay tuned to the oldtuberadio.net board for further updates. Good night, everybody. And maybe some of those Cycle 25 sunspots will rotate into view and beacon towards Earth, and you will have some good DX on your higher frequencies. Good night, everybody, and we'll catch you next time on the Old Tube Radio Network.
Good night. Good night.
Dennis.
Great night as always. Good night, OTR.